This is a Hot Pie Media original.
Welcome to Overcome with Justin Wren. We have an incredible podcast with you today of someone I look up to, who I consider kind of a faraway mentor, but I've gotten to know him. Just spent 6 hours in his home with his wife, his children, his grandchildren, and I got to see the man that he is, hear the heart that he has. But sometimes things don't match up with the way people portray or say, and then the way that they act. And man, Teddy is the complete opposite of that. What he says, he does. And it was awesome to see him being an incredible grandfather, an awesome husband. And his daughter wasn't doing well, was feeling sick. And so the way that he brought her into the home, took care of her, fed her. I mean, he went out and got our team, 6 people who sprung up in his house for a full day. He went out to the deli, made sure that he got everyone their exact order by hand himself, and then brought me and Chris Murphy back our gluten-free meals because we're celiac. And then, so this is Teddy Atlas, ladies and gentlemen. He is an incredible coach. I think he'll go down in the Hall of Fame if he isn't already, for the Boxing Hall of Fame. He had coached, 8 or 9 different world champions. He was under the tutelage of the great Customato up in the Catskill Mountains of New York, and they turned out so many world champions. He helped the Swedish Olympic team in boxing. He's one of the most iconic boxing commentators of all times. But man, is he humble, and he's got the Dr. Teddy Atlas Foundation. They've helped me and Fight for the Forgotten. They helped send Raiden to LA. So that we could take him to Disneyland. He saw Raiden get bullied and beat up in the school bathroom. And so I was with Raiden 2 days after that, and Teddy reached out and said, I want to do something. Through my friend Rob Moore, who knows him. I've known Rob since high school, I think. We went to rival high schools. And Rob, thank you for helping set up this podcast with Teddy in his home. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I've been to Teddy Atlas's foundation dinners. And wow, we talked about a lot of really great stuff, how you can apply how life is a fight. His podcast is called The Fight with Teddy Atlas. And this was a really fun and inspiring podcast for me because Teddy's has his foundation for 25 years. I've had mine for 10. And I would love to leave a legacy like Teddy is doing, like he already has done. So this is a man you can learn from. Put on your learner cap, or I guess your headgear if we're going into the fight, and really try to learn from this man who puts love and compassion in action, and who is one of the greatest coaches, I think, and how he can motivate people. I mean, you'll hear his, I don't know what you call that. Amy, help me out. The influx of his voice. So what's that called on radio? I don't
Cadence,
know. Cadence. You'll hear him go from slow, soft, telling a story to then he just really ramps it up and he just goes. He's from Staten Island, New York. And so he had me on the edge of my seat and we talked about some hard things. Him losing some friends to addiction. This is, he's a guy that has really grown up rough, even though he had a great family. And his foundation is named after his father, who was a doctor in Staten Island who would go to people's homes in the middle of the night. He would wake up. Sometimes he would put his clothes, his doctor's clothes, on over his pajamas and go to someone's house to do a house call completely for free. There's a powerful story there, and how everyone in Staten Island just absolutely loved his father. And so cool. He gets to carry on that legacy.
I just wanted to say too, speaking of Staten Island, and you mentioned the Boxing Hall of Fame. Well, he has been inducted into as far as I can tell, into the New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame and in the Staten Island Sports Hall of Fame.
Yeah. So. Well, I mean, going down, and let me try to set this up going into the podcast. It was like the Hall of Fame of sports going into his home. There was pictures, posters. I mean, he worked on movies and set up choreography for them. And I mean, there's Evander Holyfield stuff. There's I mean, all sorts of legends of the sport. And he's got all their signed gloves and just like historic artifacts of the sport of boxing, plus football, other things that people had sent him as gifts. The man's a legend. The man's a legend. And what makes him even more of a legend to me is he allowed me to bring Chris into his home, a man that we helped restore his smile, Miracle Smile Chris, with Dr. Dave Frank here at Walden Dental in Austin. And someone in Chris's family was going through a hard time. And we opened up about Chris's story. We told Teddy how we just got off the Brooklyn Bridge, where we were rewriting Chris's story, where he almost jumped off the bridge, but he heard me on Joe Rogan's podcast, decided not to jump while he was on the wooden planks, looking at the beam to jump off. And Teddy's just locked in, listening to Chris, loving Chris. Like he was loving him by listening to him so intently. And then when Chris shared something about a family member that he loves that's struggling, Teddy just goes, I don't know if I told you this, Amy. He goes, call him.
No, he didn't.
And Chris is like, what? He's a big fan of yours. And he goes, call him. I want to talk to him.
Wow.
And it was like, whoa, what? So he called him, and that person wasn't in the mind frame to talk to Teddy, but didn't know it was Teddy. So Teddy and I sit down, we do a 2-hour hour and 20-minute podcast. And then afterwards, Teddy goes, call him again.
Wow.
And he spoke to him and spoke life into him and spoke.
Really?
Yeah, spoke like he was speaking to a guy in between rounds. He was like, listen, and I'm not going to use the person's name, but he's like, listen, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
Can you dig deep? Can you fight like, he's like, who's your favorite fighter? Can you fight like this fighter? This life is a fight. He's got iconic things where he's like, be the fireman. What do firemen do? They go into the fire. They control the fire. They push back the fire. You know, and the way that he spoke into this man's life that was really needing it, I mean, was at the lowest of lows. And for Teddy to take compassion on not just me bringing Chris in there and inviting him to have a seat at the table, literally his dinner table, to then hearing about this guy that he just came to care for, his family member, and said, this guy's a New Yorker. He's one of us. Call him. I want to speak life into him. I want to fight for him. I was like, whoa, this is Teddy Atlas in action right now. We could have only been there for 2 hours. We ended up spending over 6 hours in his home, seeing what a great grandfather, father, and husband he is. So anyways, I don't need to make this intro too long, but that's the kind of man you're about to hear from. Get ready to be inspired. Get ready to learn some of the techniques that you need to know to overcome in this fight of life. Remember, you've overcome 100% of your darkest days. Teddy, thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure.
I'm really, really grateful. I got to see you upstairs with Mara, your granddaughter.
Yeah, you're gonna meet my grandson Joseph later.
Okay, I would love to meet Joseph.
Yeah, he'll make sure that he meets you before you leave.
One of the sweetest grandfather, granddaughter, or grandparent and grandchild moment I saw was you. I don't know. She was playing almost hide and seek, or she would go hide, and you're like, "Where's Mara? Where's Mara?" It's so cute.
Yeah, hiding behind the couch pillows.
Yeah,
making my wife very happy when she has to rearrange them later.
Elaine's so sweet too. I got to meet her, and you know, I've gotten to see. Actually, I'm going to show you this real quick, but I've gotten to see a little bit into your life. We're in your home. Very grateful that you are, but I was going to show you. You're talking about the Dr. Theodore Atlas Foundation earlier, and you being on stage with Santa Claus. I was going to show you this, and do you see that? That's a picture of Santa Claus.
That's Santa Claus, baby.
Can you do you know how to zoom in on that? I can show you.
That's you, isn't it?
That is me.
Oh, wow.
Can you believe that?
Even behind the glasses, I could figure it out. Wow, that's a beautiful picture.
Yeah.
Santa Claus, you got kids on your lap there.
Yeah, that was some of the foster care kiddos in Oklahoma.
And, you know, the universal thing with Santa Claus, with kids, is that it brings one thing, smiles.
Smiles, absolutely.
And that's whether they're foster kids or whatever, whatever part of the world they come from, the smile is universal.
Yep.
Makes them happy. Wow.
It does. I fell into that by accident, being Santa Claus. But I guess now I've got a goal, being an athlete, you always set goals. This was at a children's hospital with some of the little guys. But now I think I could, when I'm
same
45,
thing, the same thing. Here you are in the hospital with a little girl. Obviously she's sick and she's got a smile on her face.
Yeah.
Because she ain't thinking about being sick right now. She's with Santa Claus. That's cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's magic. David Copperfield don't know crap. And he's good. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I'm not knocking Dave. I didn't come here to knock David Copperfield. But the magic is within all of us. You don't even know it sometimes. Just putting on a Santa Claus suit.
Yeah. That actually happened by accident. Not that one. That was like my 7th or 8th year doing it. But when I was 25, I was invited to the Dallas Mavericks family and friend night and their Christmas party. And then all of a sudden I walked in and the Dallas Mavericks cheerleader, like makeup artist, all of a sudden she goes, "You can save Christmas." And I was like, "What? What do you mean?" I had a big beard. I had just gotten back from Africa and I hadn't cut my beard in a year. And so she had said,
"And you're big."
I'm big. Yeah, I'm big. She goes, "Santa just called."
You had a beard and you were 90 pounds. I'm not so sure that you'd be.
That's right. Candidate. But being a heavyweight fighter, but I was only 25. And she said, "Santa just called in sick. We have the suit. There's a costume store across the street."
You talk about fate.
Yeah.
And you talk about timing. Timing is everything, you know? Wow.
Yeah. So that's been something I've actually done the last 8 years. This will be my 9th year doing it. I've never taken any pay for it. It's always volunteer. And I love doing it. Like you said, it's magic when you see those kids smile. But I think when I'm 45, I might be able to be the youngest Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade Santa. We're in New York, we're in Staten Island, and I don't know that that's a real goal, but he gets paid well, but he's also bringing all those smiles. So
yeah, that's what matters.
Yeah, well, I love seeing you bringing a smile to your granddaughter while we're eating lunch, and thank you for welcoming us into your home.
No, it's a pleasure. I said to you earlier that for me to get on the guest list, it's not complicated to come in my house. Just be a decent person. Mm. And you people are decent people.
Thank you.
It's simple, but it's important.
Yeah. Well, I think for you, it seems very apparent that you had great parents and that they were a great influence in your life and in the community. And that, I think that's why the name of the foundation's after your father. And he was more than a decent person. I talked to Sharon today from the foundation.
I didn't even know.
Yeah, I called her and I was like, what do you, she gave me a few prompts of some questions I can ask you, but I was like, what do you remember of Teddy's father and or senior? And she said, well, I didn't get to know him like a lot of people did, but his reputation like far precedes him, because everywhere you go, you hear that he wasn't just a great doctor, but he was a great man and a philanthropist at heart. And for you, I mean, I don't really truly know the story of your father, but I thought you could share that with me a little.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Medicine comes in different forms.
I love that.
Yeah. You don't necessarily have to be from the medical world, have a PhD in, distributing medicine to help people, to cure people. I remember one time my father was doing house calls, right? Just to get right to the point, really. And the only way I could be around my father was to go on house calls with him, because he left early in the morning, he came home. Like he didn't have hours like a normal, I was going to say like a normal person, obviously 9 to 5 or anything like that. But even as a normal doctor, because he ignored the hours that were posted up on his wall, because he just stayed till there was no more patients.
Yeah.
If a patient walked in, if 10 walked in, if, he wasn't saying, hey, you didn't see the 3:30 on the door? It's 4:00 now. You got to come back to, no. Or it wasn't even a thought. He was open to anybody who was sick and anybody who was sick at that moment. And so I was 10 years old, whatever, 9, 10, 11, all around those ages. And anytime I wanted to be with him, I would just have to, figure out a way to either go down to the office to hang out or go on a house call. And so when I would hear the phone ring, see, back in those days, of course, there was no beepers, of course, there were no cell phones, but he just had an old-fashioned answering service where they would call in, the patients would call in to the answering service, and then the answering service, my father would get a call from them the next day, he'd call them, but he would call them and he would find out, who had called in, and then he would tell the answering service if it's anything of any kind of, seriousness, don't wait till tomorrow. Call me. And that wasn't really the protocol for most doctors, I mean, if once it got past a certain hour, you went to the emergency room, if you could get there.
Right.
My father's patients couldn't even get to the emergency room.
He got to him first.
Yeah. And he,
wow.
His patients were all the people that fell through the cracks, so to speak, and living, on the edge, some of them, and didn't have really much. And in the projects, wherever the most difficult, sometimes, ways of life were. I mean, you can live in the projects and have a great way of life. Most of my friends did, and have a beautiful way of life. But you could also be there, and there could be difficulty. There could be some things that are not as providable as they are in other places. And he was known as the guy that took care of everybody, but particularly the people that needed most taken care of, that were sick even when they weren't sick, that were having problems. Like I remember the foundation one time was helping people after one of the storms. I think it was Storm Sandy. We were down there helping people like everyone else, no different. And somebody said, you're helping these people, that have been so devastated, that are so much in need. And then one of my guys turned around to me, reminded me, said, our foundation, our foundation helps people that have a storm every day. It don't have to bring the ocean, up across the streets like this one did. We're dealing with people that every day, there might as well have been a disaster because their life is in that kind of place. And that's where my father was. He was the guy that when they were sick, it was worse, but there was a lot of them that were sick every day. And the way they couldn't take care of their families and have to deal with certain things. And I would hear the phone ring past midnight, whatever. I don't know. It could be 12, it could be 12:30, it could be 1 o'clock, it could be maybe sometimes later. And I knew what it was. I knew it was the answering service. So I got up and I got my clothes on and I went down the hallway, and he was coming out. And he goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm going with you." He said, "Get back in bed." He goes, "You can't come. You get back in bed." And I remember when he would walk past me, I would try to really sell it that I could go with him, sell him on it. But when he would walk past me, I never really knew what it was until I got older. I know that sounds a little silly. I wouldn't have been a good detective, obviously. But there was always something hanging out of his pants. It was his pajamas. I didn't realize till I got older that was his pajamas.
Wow.
Yeah, because he threw his pants on. He got going because it was a need to get moving. Yeah. And sometimes, I mean, when it was that late, I couldn't go. But when it was earlier, like when there were opportunities to go earlier in the night, I was there on many house calls. And there was one where we were going down the street, and I noticed that we had been there before. And that was very unusual, that to do a same house call like in a week. And we had. So I was like, well, she must be, it turned out it was a lady. She must be very sick. I said, this person, I said, yeah, it's an older lady. I said, she must be very sick. And when we pulled up, I noticed it was cold, and she was already outside waiting with like a nightgown on or something. And she was old, whatever. And I remember my father, it was like a protocol, like without a protocol, without it ever being formalized or spoken about, that I stayed in the car. And I never thought about it. I just stayed in the car. But when I got older, I realized it wasn't professional to go in the house with the doctor.
Yeah.
Even if you are his son. Right. He's taking care of business.
Yeah.
and he would leave the keys. I was there, it was cold. And he would leave the keys. And I remember he would say to me, if it gets too cold, start it up. I never started up. I never knew it was too cold. Like I didn't know like if you can handle it. Because that was him. He'd be going in there with no coat. He'd be going in there with just his jacket. He never wore a winter coat, and he would only have one glove because everyone bought him gloves. There was patients for the holidays. Everyone would buy him gloves, like buying a tie. Everyone would buy him gloves, but he would lose them. And but he would somehow find one, and he'd use that one for the doctor's bag because he had a real doctor's bag. Wasn't one of those things that looked like a purse, those little. I've seen them. I remember seeing a doctor, and I was a kid. My father had to say, "Don't say that," because I said, "What's that?" I saw one of the doctors walking around with this thing that was about this big. I was like, that's not a doctor's bag. Because his was this big. Yeah. It was a doctor's bag. It had stuff in it. Guy.
You go into like
it had hammers and nails and and then saws. So you're ready to do what you got to do. You got to build something. Mm-hmm. Got to fix people. You need a freaking doctor's bag, a real doctor's bag. I was like, these guys. So my thing, of course, I'm a kid. I said, they're not doctors. My father would say,
yeah, your dad's got the mobile clinic.
Yeah, they're not.
He's taking the ambulance with him.
These guys are just, I don't know, they're doing some kind of game show, but whatever. So I'd stay there, and I'd try to get some words in quick before he left. So he was about to leave, he would always have to, there was always, again, it was a routine. He'd get out the door, and the doctor bag was in the back seat. So he'd have to open that up. So I had a few more seconds to talk, and he would have to open that up and get the bag and go in. And as he was doing all that, I said, she must be real sick, as we were pulling up. And he said, no. He said, she's really pretty healthy for her age. I was like, then why are we here? And he said to me, just before he shut the door, when he grabbed the bag, he said, she's lonely and that's a sickness too. And shut the door.
Wow. That's profound.
Yeah, so that's what I mean. You can be a doctor in a lot of ways. So when he got back in the car, like, well, how did you treat, I didn't get that complex. So I'm a 10-year-old kid, but I was like, what did you do? And he said, I let her make me a cup of tea and I listened to her.
Wow.
And he had his own humility that was really, really strong. But it was really, it came out. It was powerful. He just said he wasn't afraid to say the truth in all dimensions of it. And he just said to me, she makes me a cup of tea. I listen, and she tells me what a great doctor I am. and he's saying in the same breath, I didn't do nothing.
Yeah.
But he did do something.
Right.
He did do something.
Wow.
And then, of course, he told me that he had at some point told me that he gave at the time, he told me I give he didn't use the technical term, I learned it later, placebo, but he gave us sugar pills. And again, he said how great the pills worked and what a great doctor you are.
Wow.
And so that, When I went to my second father, whatever, surrogate father later on, years later, up in Catskill, Customato, the great Customato.
Right.
But it always came back to my father, everything I learned.
Yeah.
But he used to have a way of articulating things. My father didn't talk a lot. He did a lot. For him, it was about doing. It was about doing. It wasn't about talking. And so when I later on had the opportunity and saved my life to a certain extent, maybe saving your life is that's it. Either it does or doesn't. And I guess it did. Going up to Catskill to fight and then be with Carson and later on become not only fight, but become a trainer. He used to have a saying, and I think it fits. He used to say, Teddy, you learn sometimes through osmosis. And you know what? There's truth to that. You know, the saying that we would say it would be, you learn through example, you learn through watching, yeah. But you learn through osmosis. It sometimes gets absorbed if you see something enough.
They say, I mean, there's that old saying or study that says you're an average of the top 5 people you hang around, that you spend the most time with. You become an average of that. And I think the study breaks it down to where if you hang around 5 negative people, that's who you spend most of your time with when you're presented an opportunity or an adversity, you're going to tend to think more negatively. But if you're around 5 positive people, it's almost like that osmosis. You're spending time with them, and you know they broke it down to like 3 and 2. Like you'll tend to think more positively about a situation when you're presented it than if you're hanging around more negative people. I think that's great you say that, because your father was a great example by the actions he took. And I have always thought love is a verb. It's an action word. And some people might not say it, but they sure show it. And then some people say it, but they don't show it. And is that really love if you say it and you're not showing it through your actions? So your father might have been a man of fewer words, but I think that he was a man of great love. And that's why, you know, the Teddy Atlas Foundation's coming on this is the 25th year anniversary.
Yeah.
And that's incredible. The impact you guys have made. You've impacted my nonprofit. But just a minute ago, I was hearing the footsteps upstairs and little Mara running around. And I think that if your father was able, I mean, I don't want to speak on his behalf, but I think he would tell you he's proud of the type of grandfather you are. It's just great, man. You're a role model and a mentor. And yeah, I'm really grateful for men like you that are continuing your father's legacy, but then I think even adding to it in a way that when you see someone like your father where they're falling through the cracks, your foundation's the one that steps in and says how you're going to help. For me, with Fight for the Forgotten, our foundation, we're 10 years into existence, but we've really started to grow this last 2 or 3 years.
You're doing good stuff.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for that. But you also helped us in a great way with a young man named Raiden, who was incredibly bullied. And I could relate to him because I saw myself in him. I was bullied from 3rd to 8th grade. Really,
see, that's his sickness.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't mean to interrupt you,
No,
but
you're great.
I mean, that's a sickness.
Yeah.
As much as cancer, as much as diabetes. That's a sickness that's out there.
Yeah. Well, 12 to 13 million students this year will be impacted.
I didn't know the number,
being
but
bullied.
That's not a shock.
Yeah. Just in the U.S., 12
and
to 13
then it's got to be remedied. It's got to be treated.
Yeah.
And it can't be treated with conventional medicine, but it's got to be treated in the ways that people like you will help treat it.
Sure. Well, you helped us go. So for the listeners that don't know, Raiden was born with autism, also born deaf in his right ear completely. And he had diabetes, childhood diabetes, and he gained 110 pounds in 11 months once they changed up his medications. And so, he had to battle the being overweight and then being picked on because of that, also because of his hearing aid, also because of being autistic. And when you and Rob, I've known Rob, who helps you in your podcast, and I've known him for, we went to rival high schools, actually in the same town, just across the street from each other. And, but Rob, I think, showed you the video of Raiden, and he's beat up by the urinal in his school. 13 kids were in that bathroom, and filming it, posting on Snapchat and Instagram, social media. And then he was also beat up at the bus stop the very next day. And three people jumped him at once. You were part of the solution or the treatment, the medicine to bring in some fun, because whenever I met him, he still had Sharpie marks in his arms from writing, I want to kill myself in his inside of his forearm. And you sent us to your foundation sent us to Disneyland all together. It was their family's first time on a plane. Mom, dad, who's Danny in Scotland, and then there's Raiden, and there's little brother Brock. And I mean, I posted that video after I knew him for a month because I wanted to wait on it, get to know him, have a relationship with him. But then whenever his parents said, we want to have a little, all the media was coming at him, but they said, we want to have a press conference where we say we forgive the kids and that we just don't want other kids to experience what Raiden's experienced. So I thought that was very brave and bold of them. But man, seeing them on their plane for the first time, Raiden and Brock and I, the flight attendants already knew his story because I posted, it went out to like 28 million people or something wild like that. It's
incredible.
Yeah, but y'all bought us those tickets, and then all of a sudden the flight attendant had known Raiden's story already. Y'all are going to Disneyland. Why don't you jump on? Because you made a video from your office upstairs with the portrait of your father behind you. And they upgraded us to first class. We got to sit there. We got to eat on meals. On the way back, though, it was funny. It was Raiden. Raiden was like, where's our hot tea? Where's our meal? I'm like, this isn't first class, buddy. But that fun, I think, was just what the doctor ordered for Raiden to escape the childhood trauma he was experiencing and to be able to go be walked around the Star Wars area with Chewbacca himself and him point at me and telling Chewie, that's your brother, the vanilla gorilla, and
that's beautiful.
Having fun.
That's beautiful.
That was really great. So
we could be a small part of it.
It wasn't a small part. It was a big part. And I know that's the humility of even your father shining through you right there. But it kickstarted a domino effect. It was that stone that was thrown into the water that created a ripple that once we got to LA, my friend AJ Buckley from CBS SEAL Team, he got us on set. The director there decided to write in a character because there was already Brock, which is his little brother's name. So they wrote in a character, Raiden, so he could be, not him, but a character could be named after him.
How great is that?
Yeah. It was incredible. We got the red carpet treatment. We got to go to the LA Rams game and be on the sidelines. We got to go with like world champion surfers surfing for their first time ever at the ocean.
Wow.
Their first time ever seeing the Hollywood sign. Navy SEALs were flying us over it in a helicopter.
It just so much better.
It spread like wildfire, and that wasn't the end of it, just the fun. Because if you have all that fun and then you come back and then there's no fun, or you go back right in that environment, I think Raiden could have been let down. But now he's in jiu-jitsu with my coach, who is Rafael Lovato Jr. He's won 12 world medals in jiu-jitsu, the best American to ever do it, at least most accomplished. 6-time world champion. Now he's got a mentor in Rafael. I moved from there, so I was with Raiden for about a year and a half. But he's been taken under the wing of a lot of guys, and it's going to
be a little harder for those guys to bully him now.
That's true. He's 250 pounds. He's eye to eye with me. I'm 6'3".
They might learn what it feels like on the other end of it. And I'm not being mean spirited.
No, I know.
Say that at all.
No, but I think whenever you do feel that, it reminds you, or it gives you, it's almost like a mirror. That reminds me of Dustin Poirier saying about the Conor McGregor fight, whenever he said, karma's not a bitch, it's a mirror. And you get to like look back at yourself sometimes.
Yeah. And I mean it in a couple ways. Not afraid to say it in the way that you can feel scared. The way this kid felt scared.
Wow.
That's one way.
Yeah.
But then I mean in the other way too, where that you just touched on, that you could see where it was wrong, where you could feel some shame towards it, or awareness, so you could have shame.
Yeah.
Just awareness that hey, That wasn't too cool. That it didn't feel good to me to be scared. Wow. Imagine what it felt to him. And with 13 instead of just 1. It's not something that is a game. Because I think sometimes the kids don't realize the seriousness of what those actions have behind them.
My parents have a photography studio, and I remember my mom having tears streaming down her face when I walked into their office once, and she showed me a plaque. They were a sports photography company, but they had taken photos of this kiddo, and my mom knew his mom, and she was sending out a memorial plaque for this young man. And she said it could have been you, because she knew I was suicidal at 13 years old. This kid was being bullied at school and was told, you should just kill yourself. So he actually went and he did it. And at 9 years old, he knew how to tie a belt and hang himself. And I don't think enough of us know, like, we have to make good choices, and the negative choices we make, bad choices we make have a repercussion to them. There's almost a reward for the good choices, but there's definitely can be consequences for the bad choices we make. We have a character development program with Fight for the Forgotten that's in martial arts academies. It's been in over 100 martial arts academies around the country, and even Scotland and England, but it's called Heroes in Waiting. And what that means is, like, we all can be a hero. A hero doesn't have supernatural power, superhuman strength. It's just someone who sees a need and takes action. It's simple. See a need, take action. That's why I think you're a hero to many. But we also show in there that, we have little challenges, hero challenges. And one of them's like, go out and complete a secret random act of kindness. And I love that one. Because you don't need a credit for it. The hero doesn't need the praise and the Instagram likes and all that. He just does it because it's the right thing to do. But they say the most powerful thing, bringing it back to what you said, like being able to see it and know that doesn't feel right. The bystander has the most power, and we need to empower the bystander, because they're either a silent supporter. They're not an innocent bystander. They're either a silent supporter, or they're active in the bullying, or they're part of the solution. And so whenever a bystander takes action and they say something as simple as, hey, that's not kind. Hey, that's not kind. And they speak up for the person that's being bullied, speak to the bully. They're assertive and they say, hey, that's not kind. There's a statistic that says, I think 87% of the time it stops bullying in the first 10 seconds. So 9 times out of 10.
Just that.
Yeah. Hey, that's not kind.
Hey, it's no different than a kid, when they don't know. I'm talking about a real baby, like my grandchildren. My grandson's just going I have 2 grandsons. They're beautiful. One's 3. He lives in Vegas with my son and his wife. My son works for the Vegas Raiders. He's assistant director of scouting there. Wow. And so we don't see him enough, so it hurts us. But we miss him. But we have the 2 here with us. And, so we have 4. He's about to be 4. My granddaughter's about to be 2. And they both went through the stages. My granddaughter's still a tiny bit where they get mad, they bite you.
Yeah.
And you got to teach them. You don't hit them. You tell them that hurts. And they're at a different place of understanding where they're still at that very, early stages of being able to comprehend those things, but they can. There's a universal language, and it doesn't have to be pain back to them, because it's not but decent parents, decent grandparents.
Yeah,
it's teaching. That you teach them that, and you have to work at it, but that hurts because they don't know it hurts.
Yeah,
I think sometimes these kids, that to the point we were talking about these kids, they think it's a video game sometimes. I know that might sound abstract to some people and sound like a way out for these kids, and I'm not trying to give anyone a way out. You're responsible for your actions. But I think sometimes they live in such a virtual world nowadays that it's almost like it's not real.
Yeah.
Like they're doing these things to this kid and it's not real. Yeah. You know what I mean?
They're not doing it in person. They don't see that person's reaction and see him cry.
And I would like to see, I know people are going to say, Daddy, that wouldn't sell too good. But I don't know. I'd like to see a video game that may be on the other side of it. that teaches you what that feels like.
Oh, yeah.
You know, just a different superhero, a guy that can come and teach kids that they, those things, we know that you don't see them as bad as much as they are, as, dangerous or as hurtful, but, they are. They can lead to, and I don't mean traumatize kids, but, show them what it can lead to a certain extent, within the realm that you can, within the video game realm.
Yeah. I've seen, I think that's a great point. And I've seen martial arts. Well, it helped me so much when I was being bullied and I found MMA and then I chose the sport of wrestling. I ended up winning a couple national championships in wrestling and was state champ, All-American national champ. But
like your man, Dustin Poirier.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it comes on our show a lot.
He's awesome. I got a shirt on right now, the Good Fight Foundation.
Yeah, he runs a good foundation over there.
Yeah. I've seen martial arts change his life, my life, but you've seen it in many ways. I think change kids' lives, the sport of boxing. And what do you think it is about boxing, combat sports? Because over the last year or two, maybe I've seen you go, you've spoke more about MMA too. So maybe from both sides of it, boxing, combat sports, what do you think the characteristics or the attributes, why does that help people that might be falling through the cracks or might be being bullied or might be, going through this internal struggle, but they find a way to overcome? This podcast is called Overcome with Justin Wren. So I think martial arts, combat sports helps people overcome. And from you being such a great trainer, training so many world champions, you also, I think, can relate with having a little bit of a troubled past or a struggle early on in life until you found the sport of boxing. What did it do for you? What have you seen it do for others?
It teaches. There's a simple word for, we search out different things. Sometimes it's much more simple than something that we're looking for the true nature and answer to what can help people in the world of my father, for example, of, what truly constitutes help, what truly gets the job done, what truly is the magic. I think it's one word in that world: care. Just to let someone know that they're cared about. And I think in the world that you're talking about, I think it's to teach young people, teach these kids, these whatever age they're at, usually at a, formative time in their life, teach them that they can depend on themselves, that there's a worthiness to themselves that they never saw, they never felt, they never understood before, that there's a worthiness. And once they know that, then they know that they count, they matter.
Yeah.
And it makes all the difference in the world. Now, all of a sudden, they have feet to stand on where they didn't really have legs to stand on before. That's the legs.
Yeah.
That's the legs. And people ask me sometimes, like Christmas time, we'll hand out 7,000 toys around New York with the Dr. Atlas Foundation. And we picked the right schools. We picked Title I schools, families making less than $35,000 a year. That's poverty.
Yeah,
and usually there's no fathers. And so when we go into these schools, usually to, I don't know what the percentage is, but a high percentage, this is the only toy they're getting, which is
this is the only
tough.
toy they're getting.
Yeah.
Wow.
Which is crazy. I mean, we're living in one of the richest cities in the world, but it's a reality. And so someone asked me, obviously it brings immediate joy to them. But beyond that, now you don't have to go beyond that. That could be enough. But beyond that, I remember someone asked me, Teddy, is there any beyond that? I said, damn right there's beyond that. it's just sometimes the spark that starts something. Just, the light that gets put on, where the electricity starts to go somewhere, and it goes beyond that one light. There might be 40 other lights to light up, and it could be 40 lights, not in 40 different people, in one person.
Yeah.
And one of those lights that generate, this effect to spread this kind of, electricity, if you will, this light, if you will, is just simply to know that somebody cared about them, and now that it's all right to care about themselves. Mm. I do incentive programs with the Dr. Atlas Foundation, amongst the other things we do, medical stuff, whatever. And what we do is we go into these Title I schools and we tell the kids, there's a lot of problems. And we tell them, and I'm not even getting into illiteracy and all that. I mean, I'm getting into just the way they conduct themselves, so the way they behave. And there's a reason. And the easiest thing, if you wanted to just use a broad brush, is say it's just bad kids. No. I know it's going to sound naive to a lot of people. I don't think there's bad kids. I think there's kids that have gotten into bad places within themselves that makes them look bad, and makes them more prone to doing things that we call bad. But a kid, and I know that they're influenced by their upbringing, the people around them, and all that stuff. I get that. I don't have to have a degree. I don't have to have something posted on a wall behind me telling me I have a degree from some fancy college to know that. It's called life.
Yeah.
And it's called understanding life because you can't understand it. And sometimes that's the only professor you need. But I know that when I go into these schools, we go into these schools and we tell the kids, I make it real simple. Okay. You start caring about who you are, take ownership over who you are, and over the next marking period, whatever, 6 weeks, whatever it is, 7 weeks, whatever, your teachers will put the ones that change their mode of behavior, start showing they care about who they are, and taking responsibility for who they are, will be put on a list. And I'll come back and drop off 100 tickets to a Yankee game, a Mets game, a Knicks game, a Nets game, and supply the buses from the Dr. Atlas Foundation. All right, see you later. I keep it real simple, I'm telling you, because, these kids have been through so much BS.
Yeah.
They know who's BS, and they know, you know what I mean? So sometimes less is more.
Yeah.
So I just keep it like, I say, okay, later. And they're like, he just said that? Yeah. And then all of a sudden, the teachers follow up, and all of a sudden kids that, and I'm talking about, when I talk about problems, I mean, they're putting their hands on teachers, they're putting their hands on other kids. I mean, I'm talking about, listen, I tell you, the first time I went to one of these schools, one of these at-risk schools,
yeah,
really tough one. I wouldn't say the school, and they wouldn't mind if I did, I don't think, but I'm not going to say it. This was years ago. I walked there, how can you forget it? I get there, and there's ambulances and cop cars. Wow. So I said, I must be the school. I hate to be that honest and that candid, but from everything I knew where I was going, it wasn't like I made a wrong left turn. I said, cop cars, something's going on, with the school. And unfortunately, there's a reason why these kids are in that school and prone to certain kinds of reactions, behavior. So I get there, and they got to wait downstairs. Somebody who you show your ID, and then somebody comes down. That's Mr. Atlas. He's here to. I'm sorry. Hey, do whatever. Something happened. Obviously, something not too good. Just take care of it, and I hang out. And then finally, they get it settled down. I wait a while, and one of the heads of the school comes over to me. Listen, Miss Atlas, the exact classroom that you were going to speak to, what happened was one of the kids was being bullied and attacked, by these kids, chastised, whatever. And he went out on the ledge and he jumped.
Ugh.
I was like, oh, can you imagine that? That desperation, that sadness, getting to a place where during the class, he opens up the window, and he goes out on the ledge, and he didn't jump right away. They was telling him to jump.
Whoa.
And, you're not going to jump. Telling him, and before the teacher could, obviously get him in the classroom, he jumped. He lived. I mean, thank God. But
yeah, thank God.
But the damage, it wasn't whatever was to the bones. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's traumatic.
I mean, like how do you fix that stuff?
Yeah.
And that's what we're talking about. And so those are the schools that we bring these programs to, and that you just. So what happens is with these, and that's the worst end of the spectrum. But what happens since we've been doing these programs is that we get a lot of kids that turn it around. And then here's to the point. And somebody asked me because they wanted to talk about it. Somebody from one of the local papers, whatever, said, what do you attribute it to? Because we've talked to the teachers, we've talked to the principals, we've talked to the social workers. It's made a difference. Like a lot of these kids have changed their attitudes, their behavior. Like they're not being violent, they're not doing this, they're not bullying, they're not whatever. What do you attribute it to? You attribute it to the tickets to the Met game. You attribute it to this, that, and I say I attribute it to giving these kids a reason to say it's okay to think they're good people. To give them the green light to think it's okay to feel good about themselves. To give them the green light to know that somebody cares enough about them that they could care about themselves, that there's a worthiness, again, back to that word, a worthiness to them. Because you want to know the truth? They didn't know.
Yeah.
Because where they're coming from, some of you wouldn't be surprised. Some of you would lose a little sleep if you knew where these kids were coming from and how, I'll get right to it, how abused they are.
Yeah.
Some of them. And how beaten down they are. And what does that lead to? I'm not a psychiatrist. I'm not trying to be that, but I don't have to be. I know that world. I know life. I know what's going on in there. I've been around it. And so all they know is that they're taught. You talk about teaching, and you talk about osmosis. They're taught that they ain't worth crap. They're taught that they're not good. They're taught that they're bad. They're taught that they're the cause of a problem.
Yeah.
That is a freaking hell of a thing to put onto a kid.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah.
That I was walking home from Gleason's gym. I know I'm jumping around, but you know what? That's
good.
what I do.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. And I was training fighters. This is many years ago at Gleason's gym in Manhattan. It was still in Manhattan, right near Madison Square. What a place. What a place. I mean, God, oh my God, 2 rings in there, upstairs balcony. You go watch what's going on. People come in during lunchtime. And I'm training my fight. I just came down from Catskill, from Costa Models, and I was on my own now, and I'm training down at Gleason's gym. Now it's in Brooklyn. It's been in Brooklyn for 25 years, maybe more. So you show you how many years ago that must have been. And here we are. And depending on the way I felt that day, I would either go to Penn Station, take a subway back to the South Ferry to go to Staten Island. Yeah, we had a ferry. Yeah, and I either do that or I would walk subway stops and just keep walking to either I jump on, because I had so many choices. I had 34th Street, I had 28th Street. I still remember them. I had 14th Street, I had Chambers Street. I had all these choices. And if I felt like I could keep walking right to the South Ferry. So on this particular night, I just felt like, sometimes you got to walk. And I'm walking, and as I'm walking, you see things in New York. I mean, it's New York. And I'm walking, not things I hadn't seen, but you see them. And I remember that, again, this is a lot of years ago, but obviously it stayed with me. I remember this young mother with 2 young kids, and the oldest of the young kids, and I think of my grandkids, actually, what I think about. He was probably about what my grandson is, or maybe a year younger. My grandson's about to be 4. He was probably about 3. And she was beating him up on the street. You know, anybody could see it. You know, it wasn't like she was hiding it. So what does that tell you? That this ain't just the first time, you know, right? And she's beating him up, you know. And his poor kid, he's getting beat up, and she's calling him, I don't know what was worse. The punches that he was getting hit on the side of his little body and slaps on his head, or the words that were coming out of his mother's mouth. That he was no good. He was a piece of this, and you effed up my whole life.
Wow.
And, you know, in New York, people get into having like they're afraid to interject, you know, like it's not your business. You keep walking, but how do you not interject? You know, it's tough. And I'm thinking, I'm being very honest. I'm no superhero. I'm like thinking, do I do something, or do I, you know, because really I get the same thought patterns. Yeah. I understand where it comes from. I do. But then you do what you feel inclined to do. And I went over there and said, stop.
Yeah.
And, you know, you could imagine her anger went towards me now, right. You know, because, you know, which is okay. Like, in a way, it's like, give it to me.
Yeah.
Really. Like, and again, I'm not even close to any kind of special person, but like, give it to me. Because the more you give to me, the less you have to, you know, get.
This podcast is brought to you by Onnit. Onnit.com/overcome. You will get 10% off your order. And Onnit's such an amazing company with an amazing culture, a generous spirit to give you the knowledge, whether it's working out, just giving you the best supplements you can, or it's giving back. They're giving back to fight for the forgotten. Onnit.com/overcome. Amy, can you bring up what that looks like? I think at the top left.
Yes.
Zoomed in. It's even got Overcome with Justin Wren special. Receive up to 10% off when you check out. You can get that on the new Alpha Brain Black Label with a little bit of a kick. It's in that badass black bottle. It's the coolest packaging for any supplement I've ever had. When I got it, I thought it was like something
sexy.
It is. But when I opened the thing, I thought it was going to start like, I don't know, smoke or fog coming out of it. I was like, this thing is badass. Yeah. And the metal's cold when you get out of the package. So I was like, is this thing like got dry ice in it or something? I don't know. And then New Mood. I wanted to talk about New Mood a little bit. I just went on a trip and was with a bunch of guys that I climbed Mount Kilimanjaro with. And we all were taking New Mood. They were all taking Alpha Brain too, but I brought up some stuff, let them try New Mood. Can you pull up how it looks on the instant? There we go. And go down to some of the different flavors because they're really fun. The orange guava is without a doubt probably my favorite, although the pineapple is really great. Pineapple punch. Let's go down a little bit. I forget what the lavender is. If it's hibiscus lavender on the flavors.
It's elderberry.
Elderberry lavender.
Here. It's called
elderberry
lavender.
And then I think they have mango also.
Mango.
Yeah.
Pineapple, orange guava.
Why would
mango.
I know all these flavors? Because I try them and I really love them.
And we mix them in with stuff.
We do. We have fun, whether it's our Onnit Palmer or our Lemonade Aid. We're coming up with some more fun names for the instant flavors. And I love Onnit. New Mood helps me relax. It's got tryptophan in it, or however you say it, and it makes you a little relaxed, almost like it's out of turkey. And then the 5-HTP, which maybe that's the tryptophan, the T in tryptophan, but there's a bunch of other good stuff inside New Mood. Go to onnit.com/overcome, get yourself 10% off, and try Alpha Brain or New Mood or Shroom Tech Sport or Shroom Tech Immune or Virotech. It's all really good stuff. Their protein's great. Their pre-workout doesn't make you jittery. And I love Alpha Brain because it gets you in that flow state faster and keeps you there longer. So onnit.com/overcome for 10% off. Thank you, Onnit, for supporting the show. And thank you, listeners, for supporting me, supporting Onnit, supporting Amy, and supporting the mission and vision of this show to become the most meaningful podcast that changes people's lives, you, the listener, but also we're going to really change some people's lives and bring them on the show and tell their stories. Thanks, Onnit.
Anyway, obviously I didn't stop at a subway stop that night. I kept going, And when I got down to the South Ferry, I had a lot of time to think. And, part of it was what I was going to do with the fund. We wound up doing these programs. But part of it was just like, I didn't need a degree in any of this social stuff or psychology or sociology or, any of that stuff. I understood the human condition. And that was enough. I've had a lot more than that, but that was enough right there. That was a crash course.
Yeah.
And that obviously her life went bad and he was to blame. But what had stayed with me was all these kids, that's the root of it. You don't have to really, I know that for the most part, that's the root of it. That they feel that they're not good.
Mm-hmm.
They're not good. I mean, I can make it, I know you can articulate it in much fancier words, but it don't have to be fancier. They come from these places where they don't think they're good. And if you don't think you're good and you don't think you're worth anything, they don't think they're good. They don't think they're worth anything. He's a piece of crap. That's what he was told. So if that's what you're told and if that's what you're brought up on, that you're those things, well, answer me a question. How are you supposed to, if you're taught that you're no good and you're worth nothing, and how do you then care about someone else? Mm. How do you in any way parlay that or connect that to where somebody else is worth something? If you're not worth something, then how's someone else worth caring about it, or someone else worth caring about their feelings, or someone else worth, in a way that that matters? If you don't matter, then how does someone else matter? So it starts so for me, that's what boxing does. It lets you know you matter. It lets you know that you can feel proud of yourself. You can feel good about yourself. That you start to get an injection, if you will, of all these things that have been missing in your freaking life.
Yeah. That
you should have gotten an injection when you were a little teeny baby, but you just missed it. You didn't get it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And you got the other stuff. And that's, for me, that's boxing.
Yeah.
Teaching you that you're worth fighting for.
Wow. They got injected with almost a poison. And so the antidote,
not almost
some sort of, well, yeah, absolutely.
To be honest.
Yeah. They injected with poison.
Yeah.
Numerous different kinds, different types. And then you inject in purpose, or you inject in hope, or you inject in the words, you matter. And maybe a coach starts telling you but then you start believing it and it starts to counteract.
And it takes a while to believe it.
Yeah.
I'm around these kids. I run programs for them in my gyms, for years, where we subsidize gyms just to get kids off the street. And our gyms do well, and without going heavy into it, but they've done well to help some kids.
Right.
I don't want to use the word while I'm using it, so I guess my back hurts. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
But to say save kids, but it helped kids,
Martial arts saved my life. When I was 13 and I was suicidal and was really thinking about doing it, the reason the only thing that stopped me was the thought of what would this do to my mom. But I wanted to so bad, except for her.
How old were you?
13.
Yeah.
But at 23, I did attempt suicide. And at 33, I did again. And And I would go through these cycles of when I would feel like I didn't have purpose or that. So these 3 kids told me.
Well, there was no reason to care about yourself.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was told at a costume party growing up, I was invited to my middle school crush's birthday party, and she crushed me. Her and my 2 notorious middle school bullies, they said, I dressed up, got to the door. Nobody else was greeted with like cameras flashing, people laughing. And my middle school crush said, I can't believe you thought you were good enough to come to my party. Another boy there, Tyler, said, you're worthless. And then the one that orchestrated it all, there was invitations. There was everyone talking about it. He said, you should just kill yourself. Just like that 9-year-old that ended up doing it. But I had a mom that did speak life or injected me with hope and believed in me and wanted to help. And they made a real big sacrifice for me. Probably the best decision they ever made, my mom and dad, they decided to get me out of that school and into another.
Thank God.
And then that school I was only at for 2 years. And then I found the sport of wrestling. I started seeing that the best MMA fighters mostly had a wrestling background, were Olympians there or NCAA champions. And my mom didn't want me to box at a young age. And so I was trying to find something because I first tried to choose boxing and I was like 14. So she said no at that time. But anyways, I went to wrestling and they sent me 67 miles from doorstep to doorstep. From my home to my high school, it was a Catholic school. We had 2 Olympic gold medalist high school coaches there, Kenny Monday and Kendall Cross. Kenny Monday was the first ever African-American to win the Olympic gold in wrestling, and Kendall Cross. And so those guys, my parents made that sacrifice because my mom said, you matter, this dream of yours. I played team sports, but I ended up quitting them in middle school because I was getting bullied at school. I would sometimes get bullied on the football field. One time I got high load where someone was holding me up top and someone else took out my knees. And this was in practice. So they were taking out stuff from school, even on me there. We're just targeting me. And so when I moved schools though, and I found wrestling, it was an individual sport and there wasn't this passing the blame around everybody else. It was like win or lose, it was on you. You know, you have your coaches and everything else. But I started to find purpose, and my mom was really the one that believed in my dream to wrestle. My dad wanted me to play football, but I wanted to wrestle, and I wanted to be an MMA fighter one day, and that was like my dream. And I had a lot of great coaches along the way, I've had 5 Olympic gold medalist wrestling coaches and then world champions.
I'm glad you made it.
Yeah, man. I
really mean that.
Thank you. Me
because
too.
Not just for yourself, obviously it starts with yourself, but for all the other things you can do now because of the journey you had and where you got.
Yeah.
How many people you can help to get from where they got to go.
Yeah.
And from thinking that they're worthless, from thinking that their life's not important, Yeah. So I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm glad I'm here.
Yeah. I'm
glad you're here. And I'm glad we're doing this because I really hope through my podcast, I want it to be one of the most meaningful podcasts in the world where we talk about real conversations and how to overcome the different challenges that come our way in this fight of life. You say that so well.
Yeah. We're all in a fight. It's just a matter of what you're fighting for.
Yeah.
But we're all in a fight.
I've always thought it was the person with the most reasons that usually wins. And when you can stack those reasons, I don't know if you see that with your champion fighters. I think you do. Who was the Russian guy that I think he was Russian that you coached and you reminded him of his father? You used the word already in this podcast. You said magic.
Alexander Povetkin.
Wow.
Alexander Povetkin. We won the heavyweight championship in Germany, but he was Russian, as you said. Yeah.
Can you, for people that didn't see that and see that ringside or you in the corner giving him that talk, what was happening? You set that up and then you reminded him of his father.
I knew he was going to hit a wall somewhere in the fight. And you got to, if you're a professional, Cus would always tell me, Cus Domino, with my mentor, he would always tell me, part of being a professional is preparation, that you're prepared for everything. You've seen it already. You've You've gone through the whole thing in your mind. You've outlined it. You've visualized it.
Yeah.
And so you're prepared for everything. Not just the good, the bad. Every possibility. And the other part of being a professional was that your emotions would never get in the way of your job. No matter what. No matter what. I'll say it one more time. No matter what. I mean, you know, to the point where some people would say it's too far. You know, like I'll give you an example. Again, I say what it is. I remember Cuss trying to give me an example of that. He goes, Max Schmeling, who had those historic fights with Joe Louis. He was a hell of a fighter, and a hell of a man. We found out later. But he was a good fighter. And Joe Louis was undefeated. The great Joe Louis was undefeated. He was on his way up. He hadn't fought for the title yet. And he fought Schmeling. And Schmeling, the famous thing was Schmeling said, I think, I'm bad at German accent, sure, yeah. But I think I see something. Because Joe Louis was a big favorite. You know, he's knocking everyone out. And Schmeling did see something. He could counter the right hand over his jab because he laid on the wrong side. He laid on the right side. And that's an alleyway to the right hand.
Yeah.
And instead of the left side where you're outside the right hand. So, and he wound up knocking Joe Louis out, leading the fight. He dropped him a few times. And so Cuss was telling me that people don't realize what a good fighter he is. And he was talking about it, you know, even before he beat Louis, you know, as Gus was just saying to me. And he said that one of the things, of course, he's a good right-hand puncher, and he's calm, and he's technically solid. He's this, and he's that, all these different attributes. But he said the most important thing, he really is a pro. How do you know someone's really a pro? It's got nothing to do with that you get paid. Nothing at all to do with that. It means that you're detached from your emotions to the point that nothing will interfere with the objective. Nothing. So what does he use? Pretty strong stuff. He and look, someone will say, well, that's not a good guy. Whatever you want to call it. We're talking about this one particular thing, what Cuss defines as being a pro. Cuss tells me that he's on his way to the ring for a fight. I don't know at what point in his career, I guess maybe earlier. And he's on his way to the ring, and one of his cornermen collapses as they're going up the steps to the ring. Wow. Not in the arena, but like from the locker room up the steps to the arena. The guy collapses. And they don't want him to be, upset. So they all say, he just fainted, we'll take care of it, keep going, we'll take care of him. As he's walking, he goes, he didn't faint, he's dead. And he goes and he wins the fight.
Wow.
He didn't faint, he's dead.
He said that to his coaches?
Yeah, to the other people in the corner. Yeah. They said they were trying to make him feel, okay, that, that the guy was just temporarily, he fainted, and we'd get him some water and we'd take care of him. He said he's dead. And he went in there and he won the fight. You could go a lot of places with that. I get it. Nobody has to explain to me. But the point Cuss was making was he reached a place, of,
yeah,
because Cuss said, and it showed later, he wasn't that guy.
Yeah.
He was a caring guy. You know why? Because when poor Joe Louis, the great man that Joe Louis was, and he was suffering after that great career and was suffering and had no money, and our government wasn't too good to him. He was a patriotic guy, and when he was in the army, celebrities, especially guys, boxing was the biggest sport in the country at the time, bigger than baseball. You didn't have to go to war. You could go in the army and you could just be Joe Louis, and you could do exhibitions, you could do whatever. So Louis was in the army, and he wants to do what everyone does, serve his country. And the army said, no, you just do a few. If you want, you can do boxing exhibitions. And he said, okay, if that's one of the ways I can serve my country, I'll do it for for the armed servicemen and women and for the cause, where the money's raised during these exhibitions. He's heavyweight champion of the world. People came out and they watched. The money raised for will go to help in any ways that they, feel that is best served to use the money for the armed services men and women. So he does it. He does a bunch of them. Years later, when he's retired, it's hard to even say this, but the government taxes him on the monies that he gave.
Wow.
So he didn't get good advice. Someone should have told him, do it, but do it for $1, even though you're giving, millions away, whatever it amounted to. But he didn't think that way. Why would he think that way? He's doing a patriotic act. He's doing an act of kindness from his heart. Why should he think that I have to, protect myself down the road, that the United States government is going to tax me on monies that I gave away to the servicemen and women? So he was broke, and it was sad. He was a greeter at Caesar's Palace to make a few dollars. The great Joe Louis. And during the years that he was broke, the people didn't know. Max Schmeling in the rematch, it was a hell of a story, Justin. Max Schmeling, Joe Louis, after that fight, he came back and then he wound up winning the heavyweight. He kept on the journey, and he beat James Braddock for the heavyweight championship of the world. And everyone said, Joe, you're champion of the world. He said, no, I'm not. So what do you mean? You just won the heavyweight? No, I'm not. Not until I beat Max Schmeling.
Yeah.
So they made that fight. He fights Max Schmeling in Madison Square Garden, outdoors. Not Madison Square Garden, Yankee Stadium, outdoors, and the whole world's watching. Now, here's the backdrop of the world. Some guy, some maniac, terrible person guy named Adolf Hitler was threatening to take over the world. And, and with saying, obviously, that he had the supreme race and all this crap. And here he is. And what does he do? Well, now Schmeling's fighting for the heavyweight championship against a guy that he already knocked out, Joe Louis. It was 2 years earlier, but he's fighting him. So Hitler knows about propaganda and all that stuff. So he puts him up as the poster child for Germany and the superior race and all that crap, that he's representing Germany and he's represents how they're better than the world. And he's going to knock out, of course, Joe Louis. So all this pressure's on Joe. Some of these, I'm not knocking anyone, but some of these people today, when they say they have pressure, they might want to visit the library. Maybe, just maybe a little bit.
Yeah. That's a lot of weight on your shoulders.
You think?
Yeah.
And he's got the whole world.
A lot of people would break under that pressure.
He gets a phone call from the president of the United States. Now, who knows if this is legendary or it's real, but I tend to believe it's real. He gets a phone call from the president of the United States. Joe, you got to win this one for the good guys. That's some
pressure. That's some weight.
A little bit. So he goes in there with a guy who beat him, who knocked him out, his only loss. He goes in there, the whole world watch. He goes in there, and the backdrop, like I said, is World War II is in the backdrop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's in a backdrop. It's about to start. I mean, this guy's going across Europe. He's taking over everything, and he's putting all this stuff forward. And I mean, really. And Joe Louis is thrown into the middle of this in that way. Fighting for the free world, in some ways. Wow. So what does he do? He annihilates Max Schmeling in one round. He destroys him in one round. And then Max Schmeling...
Stuff movies made of. That's like a Rocky story.
Max Schmeling goes back to Germany, and now he's not that guy that Hitler can prop up there as, and he was never that guy, but he had no choice. He lived in Germany.
Right.
He was never that guy, but he propped him up again as the poster child for what Hitler wanted him to represent. And he goes back there and they destroyed his house.
Wow.
They bulldozed his house and everything that he owned. And that wasn't enough. Hitler put him in the paratroopers. Now, don't hold me to this, but from what I read, what I was told, what I read in history, the percentage of living in the German paratroopers at that time, or during war, was less, somewhere around 3%.
Wow.
Under 5%, let's be safe.
Yeah.
It was crazy. They put him in the and he survives. You talk about God having a reason maybe for you. He survives it. He comes back. Everything's gone. He's got nothing. And then there's a company starting up in the United States at the time that had been started already, but it was growing. It was a little company. It was called Coca-Cola. A little startup company. And they talking about going international. And the story is that somebody in the office, when they're having one of these meetings about going, who do we have in Germany that could represent, our product? And they said, we don't have nobody. And one guy goes, no, there's somebody. There's a fighter. There was a guy that was a fighter, former fighter, Max Schmeling. Let's give him a call. Anyway, as they say, the rest of the story is he becomes the representative of Coca-Cola in Germany, he becomes a multi-millionaire. And during the time, very quietly, he's sending monies to Joe Louis.
Wow.
And he pays for Joe Louis's funeral. I think Frank Sinatra was also part of it, but he was sending him money for years to the great Joe Louis.
Wow.
That's why I said at the beginning of the story that he was he was a good man. He knew the guy dropped dead, but he wasn't what some people might connect with that he was just a cold son of a what. No, obviously he wasn't. He was a pro that understood that the guy was dead. He understood what he understood. He faced truths.
Yeah.
But his heart was damn good.
Wow, that's an incredible story. Real life, true story. And
that's why I think Joe Louis and these people are great people in those, kind of ways.
What do you think that it is that makes fighters so you have your foundation, and I could go through some athletes, but Dustin has his. I'm grateful to have mine. You just told that incredible story. When you said that the two opponents after the fight, two legendary fights, one sending money to the other, it reminded me of one of my fights. And a guy that I had knocked out heard that I was going to Africa, and he ended up buying my plane ticket after I beat him. And just before the fight, we had a lot of trash talk. After the fight, we were, you see these fighters that go in there and they go to war, they go to battle. And then afterwards they have the biggest hugs, the biggest respect for each other. And
That's right.
There's something different about the fighter's spirit or a fighter's heart, a fighter's mind than maybe a average team sport or not a combat sport, where you have this bond with the other person afterwards. But then I think that the guys that rise to the top, like a Dustin Poirier, who didn't come from a lot, who overcame a lot, who's done so much in the sport, he's getting ready for another world championship fight.
Well,
Big one. Yeah, I know.
Big one. It's going to be a tough fight.
Yeah, it will be.
We'll be rooting for Dustin. Not that we have anything against Oliveira. All
That's
the
true.
respect
He's a
in the
great guy.
world. All the respect in the world for that man.
It's awesome to have a fight like that with two
Dustin
incredible persons.
Okay.
Yeah, he is. He is. I'll be there. I got to be at the last one. You were there too. The Conor McGregor.
I was there. I was covering it for ESPN. I forgot. You're right.
Right. And then I got to be with Dustin's family because it was COVID and they didn't allow people to be there live in the audience. For his second fight with McGregor, I got to be at Jimmy Poirier's home in Lafayette, Louisiana. You know what? The two of the places I've had the best hospitality was there.
And good
the Poirier
crawfish.
family.
Go ahead.
And good crawfish. But here also in Staten Island from you and your family, and both times when I came to the foundation,
I made the list.
You made the list. I mean, it almost feels like it's something out of not a movie, but it's real. But there's the stereotypical like just warm welcome and making sure that we got our the whole crew here, that we have our glasses with the ice and the water, and you went out yourself to get us our sandwiches and my gluten-free meal because I got celiac and Chris's too. I mean, there's something that's great whenever you can look behind the curtain, because I've been around a lot of professional sports now, and sometimes you get a look behind the curtain and it's disappointing because
the wizard ain't really too much of a wizard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what do you think is different about the fighter spirit? Or why do they go that extra mile? I guess they might have to do that during the fight. They have to dig deep. And so whenever they feel that pain for somebody, they can have this compassion inside them. They have a deeper well.
Because they know what it feels like to go to a dark place. That's it. Bang.
Mm. They know what it's like.
They know how lonely it is.
Wow.
And they know what it takes to go there.
Mm.
So they have nothing but mutual respect for each other. They don't have to say a damn word. Just call each other brothers. You know, we always talk about being brothers. And I wish it was more than words sometimes, because we are brothers, all of us.
Yeah. And
I just wish people knew, the truth to it, that it's really true. Because we all get scared when we go to dark places. We're brothers in that. Forget about the easy one where we all bleed red. Okay, I get that one. That's been kind of used a lot. And it's not that it's not true. But we're all brothers in a way that we're scared. That we go to these dark places and we all feel the same way initially. Scared of that dark place. Some of us have more discipline put into our lives and structure, put into our lives, and confidence put into our lives, and love put into our lives, and direction put into our lives, and care put into our lives, and support put into our lives, and eventually experience with those things that we can make the right choices in navigating in those dark places. But initially, before we get to all that, we're just in a dark place. We all feel the same thing. The same thing. We get to the place where some of us are better in what we do in those places and how we handle what we do in those places. But one thing that is a brotherhood that joins us, and it will never change, is how we all feel when we initially get there. We're scared. We're scared. Anyone who's not, I remember Customano one time telling me, he said, Teddy, anyone who says they're not afraid when they're going in a ring, they're one of two things. They're either a liar or get them a doctor. There's something wrong with them. There's something wrong with them. They're one or the other. That's it. How true. How true. You could stand there and say, oh, yeah, I'm not okay. And that's why fighters can have that empathy. I know all people can have it, and most people do. But we're talking about fighters right now. And they can have that sometimes little extra empathy for weakness. What is called weakness, what is perceived as weakness, what is just labeled by people as weakness. But it's really ignorant to label them, because it's not weakness. It's human. It's human. It's there for a reason. It's there because whether you feel better calling it nature or God, it's your choice. It's okay. But it's put there for a reason, to get you through things. Without it, we're doomed. But the key is as Cuss would articulate to me, is to learn to control it and don't let it control you. That's the key. That's what we learn in life. Don't let it control you. Yeah.
Fireman.
Because if you don't, because it's like fire. I'm being a little corny here. Don't mean to be, but being very simple. That if you, it's like fire. If you control it, it'll cook for you, to heat your homes, to do a lot of, good things for you. And if you don't, it'll burn everything around you, and it'll burn you, it'll consume you, and that's it. You'll be dust. In whatever form that dust is,
for me, it reminds me of we tried to call someone before this. I won't use their name, but they just a real brother of a friend of mine, and he might currently feel like he's in the fire, or he might currently sounded like he was in a dark place. Well, what would you want to say to him or someone like that, that's in that dark place, that they might not see hope in the dark?
You're not alone. Because that's the thing. There's always a part of the cancer that kills you. There's a part of it that don't kill you. There's, but there's that one part that kills you. And there's a part of depression that kills you. And I think the part that can do the most damage is the part that makes you think that you're alone, that it's only you. I just say, brother, you're not alone. You're not alone. You're not alone. You're not in that solo universe. I know that it feels like you are. I understand that. I do. But you're not. You're not. And there's a way out.
Yeah, there always is.
There's as dark as it feels right at that moment, the light's going to come.
Yeah.
And that's part of the lie. See, that's part of what kills you. That you think you're alone. That's a lie. Lie number one. Lie number two, when you're dealing with these type things we're talking about, pressure, whatever you want to call it, depression, whatever. Lie number two, that it's going to last forever. No. It might last 30 seconds. I'm talking to a man who understands exactly what I'm saying. It might last a day. It might last hours. It ain't lasting forever. It ain't lasting forever. That's a lie. And here comes the third lie. There's 3 lies. The third lie, there ain't a damn thing you can do about it. It's no longer your choice. Lie. Lie. It's your choice.
Wow. That reminds me, like, whenever you're sparring or even in a fight and you're backed up into the corner of the cage, corner of the ropes, and you're just taking like a barrage of punches. You're going to
find a way out. You're going to find a way in.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Are you going to bite down on your mouthpiece and you're going to start swinging to find that way out? Or are you going to take a knee?
But the lies, you got to get past the lies, because the first lie going to come is the way you feel is going to last forever. No, it's not. 10-second flurry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's going to last forever? What you do, the choice you make at that moment. That's going to last for eternity.
I think quitting's a lot harder. Quitting on yourself, it's easier in the short term.
The greatest prison for people in the world, it's not Attica. Attica's a pretty nasty place, but it's not Attica. It's a prison called regret.
I honestly fear, and I've heard it said in some ways, but I really do fear at the end of my life. And so I'm trying to be proactive in it, right? But at the end of life are those, the dreams you could have brought to life, but it's the people you could have helped. And it's the love you could have gave but chose not to. That's what I'm trying to, through the foundation now and other things. It's like,
well, thought you couldn't. Well, thought you could. Thought you couldn't. Thought you didn't mean enough.
Yeah, exactly.
Thought you didn't mean enough. You didn't have the resources. You didn't have the stuff to make a difference. Yeah, you did. All you had to do was make a phone call.
I'm sure you've heard this because you started a foundation. I've started a foundation, and there's a lot of people that would come up and tell me, shake my hand, and say, "Oh, I've been inspired. I've been encouraged, and this is really great, and I'm proud of you." And those things, it's great to hear. But then whenever they turn it right from that to say, I don't think I could ever do that. Or when I get the resources, I will start doing this.
You got them. It's a 4-letter word. We talked about it earlier. CARE.
Care. That's what people truly want. And that doesn't cost a dime.
No, it don't. Just costs a minute.
Yep. It does. Yeah. It does cost time. It doesn't cost a dime.
It's okay. That's okay. We've wasted enough time in this world.
Exactly. Do something with your time.
That's a pretty good thing. Yeah. With all the stuff, the gyms, we subsidize these gyms, and for 10 years we don't anymore. But I talked to you about that off camera. Yeah. But we did for 10 years, and out of the gyms came a few world champions, a couple Olympians, a whole mess of Golden Glove champions. Oh my God. National champions, all that stuff. As somebody asked me, what's the best thing that came out? Not that. That's great. Don't get me wrong. I'm proud of every one of those. But no, we had a girl that was living in a car with her mother in Brooklyn, and she's in the United States Navy now.
That's victory.
That's pretty good.
That's a victory that matters.
We had a kid that was 15 years old. He was drinking a bottle of vodka a day. Yeah, a bottle of vodka. Drinking a bottle of vodka a day. And he got thrown out of his house. A good house. Not, some of these houses were not good houses. We said that. I mean, the truth is the truth. This was a good house. But it went bad. The kid got around the wrong people, whatever, and it went bad. He was hanging out with what they call gangbangers, whatever. And that's the terminology, hanging out with gangbangers. And he got thrown out, so he's living basically wherever, the streets. And like I said, a good family. And got into gyms, stopped drinking, stopped hanging out, obviously, got back with his family. Is he a world champion? Yeah. You just don't have one of those phony belts. You don't have one of those belts that the WBC does. Sometimes it's ridiculous how many they got. Oh, God. Forget about it. But what counts is what you are, not what the belt says you are. What you are. He's a champion.
Who you really are.
He's a champion. Because he beat that.
Yeah.
He beat that. And so he's, and I'll finish it with one thing. I have to do things I hate, like around the time for the dinner. We always do it the Thursday before November. Last year we had to do virtual like everyone else because of COVID. This year we're dusting ourselves off, getting off that camera, and we're doing a dinner. And it's going to be November 18th. So, but this time of year, I always hate it because I got to ask people. I got to ask people for help. And thank God I get good answers. Yeah. But I got to ask. I got to ask celebrities and start to come. And I hate to, you have no idea. I put it off. Like I do the opposite of what I tell everyone. Deal with what you got to deal with, but I don't put it off too long. Yeah. I put it off for a minute. And then I get on the phone and I call up, and I'm always afraid this will be the year they say no, but they don't say no. These good people, they don't say no. Thank God. And so I always have to look, again, do the things you don't like to do. You like to do the things where you can help somebody, but getting the resources, sometimes that's not as much fun. So there was a time where I had to get more resources for the gym. We were spending a lot. And so somebody said, Teddy, meet with this guy. He's a millionaire, billionaire, not even a millionaire, billionaire. That's even better. And meet with him in New York. Again, I would never embarrass him. He can embarrass himself with the way he has to live with his choices. If he's embarrassed by it, maybe he's not. So that's okay too. So, but I would never mention his name, but I had my doubts about the meeting. And, but I took it on the hope that there'd be substance to this guy and he would hear he would hear what was needed to be heard, that we needed money for these kids. And of course, no sugarcoating anything, right to the point. So we take this meeting. My guys come with me. They want to be there. There's 5 of them, whatever. And me, it really comes down, it's me and him and my 5 good guys around, hoping it's going to go good. And it didn't go good. It didn't take long because he came right out. You know, he's a guy that made a lot of money. So obviously he's got his own, you know, strength of what he believes in and putting it forward, right? Whatever you want to call that, confidence, whatever. And he comes right out and he says, so why should I give you money to help promote brain damage? Well, not a good start. So my guys are like, you know, I have peripheral vision, you know? And I know, but what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Sometimes you just got to just go in there and just, you know, start doing what you got to do, take names later. And took me about 2 seconds to try to be diplomatic. And I said, nah. Well, first thing is to get people that we ask that aren't ignorant, that would, if they don't know something, they find out about something, what it really is, rather than just go maybe being led by ignorant information of things they assume it to be. That it's just about brain damage. How about it being about, and I wouldn't let him go. He started to, you know, wouldn't let him. I just said, how about that maybe we have kids like, and I was thinking about this kid that was drinking a bottle of vodka a day, and now he's no longer. Now he got thrown out. He was living with gangbangers on the street. Now he's back in his house, going to school, getting a degree, and he's never going to be a world champion, but he's going to be a better person. And how about that? What do you think? Let me ask you a question. What do you think kills more brain cells, a jab or a bottle of vodka? Thanks for your time. That was the end of that one. We were walking down the stairs again. That didn't go well. No, I didn't. My guys were like, I turned to one of them, you know, because I had a saying on ESPN for years, you know, when somebody said something that was like Captain Obvious stuff, I would say, that doesn't make you the amazing Kreskin. So we got my guy, that didn't go well.
Yeah.
That don't make you the amazing Kreskin. No, let's go. Let's get out of here. Before I go back in that freaking room and finish it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's, you know, I'm not trying to be a tough guy,
right?
I mean, or that silliness, but I'm just saying it pissed me off. That is ignorance for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
You look up Webster's dictionary. If really that, I don't care what Webster says. I really don't. Mm-hmm. That's the definition of ignorance. When you just assume that you know something about something when you really have no clue. No clue to say boxing is only about doing brain damage. To not give yourself a chance. I get it that you're not going to understand it. I do. But give yourself a chance to maybe learn something that it's about kids saving themselves. Mm-hmm. It's about the damage that's being done is in these kids' homes. Mm-hmm. When they're kids and they're being abused and being whacked around. And I don't mean just physically, emotionally. That's killing brain
damage.
Cells.
Yeah.
That's damage. Boxing can salvage that, can save that, can change that. They're already in a violent world, these kids that I'm dealing with. This is an alternative to violence.
That's good.
Damn.
That's good. You bring up an interesting perspective. I had one thing to read you because we started off and you support a lot of kids through education and you want to make sure that they're going to school, getting grades, that they're attending class. And I saw something on the internet. I thought you'd think it was an interesting perspective. It's a principal. And this principal wrote this letter to parents. And I just wanted to get your take on it because
First thing I say is teachers are so damn important. We need teachers.
Yeah.
We always did. We always have. But my God, we need them. We need them
more than ever.
Well, we do.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know you're good. But this principal sent this out to parents and said, "Dear parents, the exams of your children are to start soon. I know you are really anxious for your child to do well, but please do remember, Amongst the students who will be sitting for their exams, there is an artist who doesn't need to understand math. There is an entrepreneur who doesn't care about history, English, literature. There's a musician whose chemistry marks won't matter. There's an athlete whose physical fitness is more important than physics. If your child does get top marks, that's great. But if he or she doesn't, please don't take away their self-confidence and dignity from them. Tell them it's okay. It's just an exam. They are cut out for much bigger things in life. Tell them, no matter what they score, you love them and will not judge them.
That's an educator. Okay? I don't got to meet this guy. That's an educator. And that's a smart, wise man. And that's a guy who found the right place in life for him. And I'm glad he's there. But I wish there were more.
Yeah, me too. Well, your perspective, I think the way you're educating people through combat sports, through boxing, through the fight of life, which life's a fight. And every person, whether you like it or not, you were born in this world, you're a fighter.
We're all in it.
Yeah. But one of the things I thought about, meditated on whenever I was starting this podcast was, what would I want to say to people for the name Overcome? And it's, you have overcome 100% of your darkest days. If you're here, you're still breathing, you've overcome 100% of your darkest days. Now it's time to shine your light and share your love with the world or the community or just that person right beside you. And I appreciate that you're doing it through your foundation in so many incredible ways. You're doing it with your granddaughter. You're doing it with your wife, your children, your community, your fighters. You do it through the way you just model life, the way that you interact with people. You see them. You recognize a need, you take action.
I care.
You do care.
Somebody asked me one time, it's funny, and I'm sorry if I'm being self-righteous in a tiny bit. I really am. I apologize if I'm not trying to be that. I really not. But somebody one time at least gave me a minute to make me feel like I was like a tiny bit worth something, and thinking like, when you're not here no more, like, what do you want on your epitaph? As your epitaph on your, if there was, on your stone. And I said, again, it feels too self-righteous or too much about yourself. But the question was asked. You answer questions. And it took me about 1 second to give the answer. What do you want them to say? I said, that he cared.
2 simple words. Actually 1, but he cared.
Yeah. And, because I would hope someone cares for my kids and me and my grandchildren. And that's pretty universal.
Yeah.
Pretty simple.
It is. I think we've come at a good stopping point, but I want to really thank you for being here. Thank you for having us in your home in the basement with all these amazing posters. I'm looking around. I'm like, this is a legacy. This is incredible. I got to go watch Triumph of the Spirit, right?
Yeah, that was quite a journey. That was quite an experience. That was shot in Poland in the original death camp, Auschwitz.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know that at all.
Yeah. It was based on a true story of a Greek Jew who was before the terrible Holocaust, the war, the whole thing, the takeover, what we talked about with Schmeling and Louis. Before all that, when it was just starting and Hitler was just taking over these different places in Europe and putting Jewish people into concentration camps, and other people too. Other people, millions of gypsies were vanquished. Terrible in these camps, these death camps. But 6 million Jews. And when he was doing this atrocity, these people were all something. They were all professionals. They all had some kind of background, some kind of vocation. And this particular one, that survived the death camps, which not too many survived, was a boxing champion of the Balkans. He was a Greek Jew, and his name, I still remember the name. I trained Willem to look like a fighter, and then I went to Poland, and what I did was I choreographed all the fight scenes. And I even created the fight scenes because they didn't have them created. So they told me, we need 8 fights, and we created. So I had never done that before. But so I trained him for 3 months at Gleason's gym, and then went to Poland for a month to choreograph and continue training him. And the man that was based on was Salomo Arush, Greek Jew. And what they did, besides all the atrocities that we know about, what they also used to do was the SS officers for their own entertainment had their own version of Friday Night Fights. They actually put a ring up in the camp somewhere, and they would have prisoners fight each other.
Wow.
And the losers would go to the ovens.
Wow.
And
they're literally fighting for their life.
Yeah, and this Salomo Arush was a real fighter. And he won every one of his fights to stay alive. Because if he lost, there was no, like Rocky said, or whoever said in that Rocky movie, ain't going to be a rematch. Not in this place.
Wow.
Not in this place. So I was hired by the producer, Arnold Culberson, and Willem Dafoe, the actor, to train him. And I'll tell you a quick funny story.
Okay.
Do you mind?
Yeah, no, not at all.
Because
I got time.
They decided in the movie they want me to play one of the fighters.
Yeah, I think I see you on the
Well,
ropes.
that's me. Yeah, on the ropes. And we kept shooting that part, and I created it. I wrote it up what the fight was going to be. I knew how that, I understood. So I wrote it all up, and I was so proud. I stayed up all night, and I choreographed it piece by piece, and I showed it to the producer. We became friends, Arnold Culberson. I was so proud. I said, "Here, look, well, how you like it?" He's reading it, reading the fight, how it's going. And at the end, he didn't get to the end. He goes, "Teddy, not for nothing. I love you. You're the greatest. You're doing an unbelievable job, but Willem's the star. He's got to win." I said, "Well, read the rest of it." I said, I get to that. I said, it just took me a while. I know. So we get to the part where I'm on the ropes like you're talking about, and everyone's there, and we're shooting it. And here we are, we get to the ropes, and he hits me all kinds of shots, right? And I'm sitting on the last rope, and I'm supposed to go to the floor. I don't go to the floor. Now, I'm just telling you that I believe I believe in telling the truth, like we're all supposed to. And really, and I'm telling you the truth, I didn't really realize. And then after they were so respectful, the people there and the producer and the director, they were like, after about 3 or 4 shootings of it, takes of it, they were like, "Teddy, after getting hit all those punches, don't you think you'd go to the canvas?" And I didn't even realize, because I wasn't. I was still on the rope. And I said, "Well, no." I said, because he knows he's going to go to the oven. So somehow, and I justify it, I said, boy, I was magnificent saying it. I said, somehow he finds the fortitude, the intestinal, something inside of him that keeps him on that, and it doesn't allow. And then all of a sudden, Arnold, the producer, goes, he goes, "Really?" And then Willem steps up and says, "Or, Teddy, with all due respect, could it be you just don't want to take a dive against somebody like me?" I said, "Yeah, it could be that." Let's do it again. Yeah. And then finally we did it again, and I fell down. I fell down. Everyone was clapping. Bravo! They were like, and I was having problems. I was having trouble. So the cutest part of the whole thing was when the premiere came out, they flew us out to California, red carpet, that whole thing. And my whole family, of course, I'm bringing my whole family. And I go out with my family, and my son, at the time is probably little Ted. I'm very blessed for my son and daughter, my grandchildren. And he's, I don't know, he's like my grandson now. He's probably only about 4 years old or something. And so he's walking on a red carpet and all the photographers are taking pictures. Stay still, take pictures. And they're all taking pictures. And all of a sudden, Willem comes walking out. Hey, Teddy. Hey. And he goes walking right over. No hesitation, no anything. He just walks right over to Willem, and my wife's standing there. We're all standing there. 4 years old. Walks right over. He said, "You didn't beat my father. He let you win because you were the star." And he walked away. And Willem's standing there, and Willem's saying, "Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Yes, you're right.
Movie magic.
You're right." He goes, "Yeah. Okay." And then he walked. Got that straight.
Yeah.
Got that straight.
At 4 years old.
4 years old.
Wow. That's awesome.
I just had to tell that story.
No, thank you for telling the story. I'm looking behind you, and I don't know who wrote that to you. I'm trying to read it. Maybe
That's Arnold Kobelson.
Okay.
And go ahead, you can read it.
He said, "Dear Teddy, if you are so good, why are you on the ropes?
Yeah.
Your contribution to my film was so great that I could not have done it without you. Next time, ask for more money."
Yeah, because we argued about the money.
But with much appreciation. And then Arnold Colson? Is it
Kobelson. He was a huge producer. I mean, he did huge. I wouldn't even do him justice. Yeah. How many movies? I mean,
well, I love Willem Dafoe too. Him and Arnold. They must.
The Fugitive was one of them, but there was so many of them.
Wow.
You know, with Harrison Ford.
Yeah.
He did Platoon.
Wow.
Which was really Willem's coming out.
Yeah, that was of Platoon.
Yeah. That was his coming out
Academy Award
sort of movie. Yeah,
you could ask for more money. No, but but Willem he made a movie Boondock Saints, where he was in.
Oh God,
and that's an incredible. film.
He plays. Listen, I love Willem. I love him.
Yeah,
he's really good at playing these sickos.
Oh yeah,
he is good, almost too good.
Yeah,
almost too good, like scary good. He's the man.
Funny.
He's the man.
This movie, I can't wait to watch. I'm going to watch it with the woman I plan on marrying, who's normally my producer on the show. She couldn't be here today, but that fight, I had no idea that ever happened at the concentration camps.
Yeah, and I didn't either. A lot of people didn't.
Wow. That reminds me of the book. Have you heard of Viktor Frankl's A Man's Search for Meaning?
No.
He was a survivor in the Holocaust, and I think the premise of the book basically explains it like this, that it was the people with the most meaning that survived during the Holocaust, that you could see someone with a little more meat on their bones, I'm paraphrasing, or someone that survived that, looked like a skeleton with skin on. The reason that person survived was they had more meaning, and looking at it, you would see people that
they could work,
didn't have a lot of purpose.
They could work.
Yeah.
They could work and do what the Nazis want them to.
Or they could just find it in them to survive and not die some of the time because they had a sense of purpose or meaning. Maybe it was someone on the outside that wasn't in the camp, or they were split up from their family, and if they didn't survive, their family would be without them.
Yeah,
and they would never see him again if they didn't survive.
A connection to a purpose beyond themselves.
Yeah, and
beyond their physical selves.
Exactly. And to be able to fight for your life and win every fight.
That makes sense, obviously. Yeah. There's a power. There's a power to that.
This has been powerful to me. I do want to say thank you on air to you, but also our friend Dustin. You guys have supported Fight for the Forgotten. Dustin and the Good Fight Foundation have supported Fight for the Forgotten in an incredible way. And I want to ask any supporters of Fight for the Forgotten that are listening to this now that they could go to y'all's website and they could donate, because November 18th, is that it? November 18th?
Yeah,
it's coming up soon.
It's coming
up soon. So if any of our supporters would like to give a donation to you and all the great work that you do, I'd ask them to.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I appreciate what you guys do.
Thank you. Thanks for being here. I guess rise up, overcome. Well, I hope you enjoyed that podcast with Teddy Atlas. What a man.
Now you're varying your voice all over the place. You're
How can I not with Teddy? I'll start whispering real low, get you pulled.
Dynamics
in.
is what you're
Dynamic.
looking for. It's dynamics.
Yes.
Like the dynamics.
Hopefully that didn't hurt your ears if you had earbuds in.
Interesting dynamics.
Yeah, but he even does that with his granddaughter.
So cool.
Mara.
No,
He's like,
it makes people interested.
Where'd Mara go? And then all of a sudden, there she is. I watched him on the couch for quite a while while our team set up the podcast stuff. And what an inspiring person to speak life into Chris, who 9 months earlier was going to jump off the Brooklyn Bridge. And on his way, he got a notification that Joe Rogan dropped a new episode. I got a message from him that night. I decided not to do it. And 9 months later, I got to walk the Brooklyn Bridge with him. And he said, I just can't believe this. I can't believe it. And I go, we got to change that. Amy told me this. What'd you tell me?
Well, I don't
You said,
allow
I
any of
can.
us to say I can't believe it anymore.
Yeah.
We wipe that from our vocabulary
We
because
wiped
then
it.
the universe goes, oh, well, this person can't believe it. So I better not give them any more miracles. So you have to say, I can believe it.
I
And then
can
it's like,
believe it.
oh, okay, great. Here's more.
Yeah. I had
Believe
Chris,
it all.
I had Chris saying that, like, hey, stop right now, reframe. Let's say I can believe it. We're here together, bro. Because
And why can't
this
you
is a
anyway? Because it's
miracle.
actually happening. So
Yeah, it just happened. We're
it
here.
just happened.
We're rewriting history.
Believe
And so, Teddy, we're rewriting our future for sure.
Mhm.
And wow, suicide's a real thing. Teddy lost people to overdose. We've had some encounters even today. And someone on Instagram that had listened to the show and had commented.
Yeah.
I think you pulled that up.
I did pull it up. It's TKO Auto Spa. I don't know the person's name. Do you?
Go ahead
TKO Auto
and start
Spa.
reading and I'll look that up.
Yeah. It's not on their profile, but they're an auto detailing service here in Austin, Texas. TKO Auto Spa. It might be on his Instagram.
It's Tyler Marks.
Tyler. Okay, great. He says, we need more of this. He commented on this. He said, we need more of this. Suicide survivor myself, shortly after my wife committed suicide.
Oh, Tyler.
I know. As long as I'm breathing, I have a purpose, even if it's not 100% clear at the moment. Our story must continue. And then said hashtag mental health awareness, hashtag suicide prevention month. Yes.
Wow.
And you pinned that to your post.
I did because I made a post about, Suicide Prevention Month.
Yeah.
And I forget how I related it, but it was because this girl was on one of those cooking shows and she's trying to open the jar.
Oh, yes.
And she can't do it. She pulls out, she can't do it with her hand. She can't do it with a towel. She is thinking on the fly and she looks up, her dad's cheering her on. So she just ran to him, gave it to him. He popped the jar. He was like the hero. And I think sometimes when it comes to suicide, you got to pop open a little bit. And if you're shaking up like a soda, maybe you open it up slowly, right? And let that pressure just kind of, but sometimes you got to go to someone else and let them help you open up, a therapist, or a friend or a family member. And so I told Tyler in the comment section that, hey, he's doing some great stuff on some incredible sports cars with TKO Auto Spa. And I said, we're going to get some at-home detailing for your car, for Sydney's car, maybe for my car. My car might not need it, but or it might really need it. It needs it. You're right.
Yeah, like you keep yours so spotless, it doesn't need it.
But yeah, and then I had a friend, Kale, reach out to me today, and he's going to fight in honor of his father, a really, really good friend of mine, his father. He was my first sponsor in MMA, Brian Sykes, and he was my training partner. And I was his coach in MMA. And I got to be there for his first MMA fight. Now I get to be there for his son's first MMA fight. And while Brian died by suicide, the autopsy says CTE. The autopsy says he died by CTE, which is traumatic brain injury. And, we want to do something to help them. I'm definitely going to do something to help Kale, his son, and I will be there in his corner, coaching him, taking him through visualization, just like I did for his dad right before his first fight. So this is why to bring that up. I think it's because, guys, if you're hearing my voice right now, you really have overcome 100% of your darkest days. Some of them you might feel like you just survived. I am a 2-time suicide survivor. I've lost more than a couple of people this year that have died by suicide. And I want to do something about it. That's why we started this podcast. That's why I started Fight for the Forgotten. This is a real issue. It's the number 2 cause of death between ages 12 or 10 years old to 24 years old in the United States. I think when Zuby was on, he said it was the leading cause of death in the UK or somewhere in Europe.
Wow.
It's something we've got to talk about so that we know what to do about it. And the best thing I've ever done is talk about it, seek help, and also learn to love myself. Just like you told me, Amy, love yourself like your life depends on it. Why? Because it does. And so those little acts of kindness, those little things where you see somebody, you smile at them. You don't just walk across the street from them, the homeless guy or the addict or
And what about that TSA agent?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Actually, that was part of the post on my Instagram with the jar. I saw a TSA agent going to Virginia and he looked really down. It wasn't busy and he literally had his hand over his face. And because I have clear, because I travel a lot.
How old was he?
I would say he was probably in his 30s.
Okay.
Red hair.
Around your age. And
yeah. Around my age, red hair. Not that in shape, not that matters, but just looked like he wasn't in a healthy spot, maybe physically, but absolutely mentally, because you could see it through his body language. And I went through the security line and I go, "How you doing?" He goes, I've been better. And anyways, it was just real striking how after that he goes, I go, "What does that mean?" And he goes, "I just exist." And whoa, that's not a good thing to say. I just exist.
Yeah.
And so I go, "Well, I hope your day gets better." And I walked through the line and I thought, "Oof, is that what I really want to say to him? Hope your day gets better."
Yeah.
I had my stuff on the bins, my shoes off, and I was walking through and I grabbed my stuff off the security line and I was holding it stacked up together. And I went back up to him. I had to wait a few because some more people came through. I just thought, what can I say to him? And I go, "Hey, excuse me, buddy." And I had a security guard looking at me, another TSA agent, like, "What are you doing?" And I just kind of held my finger up, like, "Hold on 1 second," and pointed at him. I needed to talk. And when he looked at me, he was like, "Oh, what's going on?" I go, but he looked sad, looked like he was about to cry. I go, "Hey man, I don't know where you are in life, but I've really been down a couple times. I'm a 2-time suicide survivor. This is Suicide Prevention Month. I just wanted to let you know, man, it gets better. You, me, we have overcome 100% of our darkest days. I want you to know, man, there's people out there that will help you and you can help yourself, but you got to love yourself." I know that's a lot. I'm just a guy, but I started a nonprofit and I tried to kill myself twice and now I get to help people. So I want you to be encouraged today. He just looked at me and goes, "Wow, thanks." And I needed to hear that today. And so something small, didn't take a lot. It took that. Sometimes the greatest things in life or the most you will be able to help somebody is just if you take that 5-10 seconds of courage, just to decide to change your mind. I was just going to walk through the security. That was my plan.
Well, yeah, because that's kind of a hard place to go back. It's not like,
and you're interrupting the guy on his job.
Shop, where you can just go back in. It's like, oh, am I going to be arrested?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I try the times I follow my gut, the times I follow my intuition and follow my heart. Follow my heart. Good things happen. And it's hard sometimes. Sometimes you gotta, there's a calling into courage, like, that 5-10 seconds of courage, but I really hope it meant something to him. And I'll be honest. I was worried by that. I just exist and I've been better, and looked like he was going to cry, and I'm only there and I'm taking off on a flight. So as I walked through security and got through, you put your hands up, it scans you. And I got through there on the other side. A guy was like looking at me. I don't know if they saw me look at him or what, but he looked like he was kind of a leader there. A big, strong African-American man, looked real nice. I looked at him and he kind of looked at me, and it was one of those looks like, what's up? So I said, hey, I just wanted to say, like, your man up there, I won't use his name, but I was like, your agent at the front, it looks like he's going through a hard time. It's Suicide Prevention Month. I work with people. It'd be awesome if you could check in. I'm not saying he's suicidal type thing, but I know he's down. And so if there's any way to check in on him whenever he has a break, or take him to lunch, or, just check in on your guy, that'd be really awesome. He goes, wow, thanks for the heads up. I was like, cool. So at least I did something.
Yeah, that's right. You don't have to live thinking, what if I'd done something? And I think it's those little times when we ask what if, why not just go ahead and do it, so you don't have to wonder what if, because then you did what you could in that moment.
Right. Sometimes those just little small things that make a big difference.
Always small things. It's almost always just saying something. Because I know people have said stuff to me that they didn't even probably realize at times, and it stayed with me and helped me in ways that they will never even know.
Yeah. So this is a long outro, but I hope it was worth listening to. I know it was. And
it was great.
Yeah.
I know it was. Of course it was. Yeah.
Well, I don't know where you're at, but what I do know is you got breath in your lungs.
They're here.
You got a beating heart.
Don't know where
in
you're
your
at,
chest.
but you're here.
You're here.
And that's a good sign.
And you don't just exist. If you got a pulse, I promise you, you have purpose. There's purpose in your pulse. There's purpose in your pain. And because I've gone through a lot of pain in my life, I also get to help alleviate other people's pain. And Teddy's been able to do that. Amy's been able to do that even in my life. And so who can you impact? Whose life can you change for the better? How can you make this world better? It's a good question for us all to ask ourselves as we overcome the greatest challenges in our lives, so that we can make the difference and be the person we want to be. Thanks for listening.
Hey, don't forget to send your Overcome stories to overcomepodcast@gmail.com. And also rate, review, subscribe, and follow Overcome with Justin Wren.